Okay, it's 5 o'clock. We'll call the joint special meeting with North Shore and Shoreline for the planning committee to order. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amy, could you take roll, please?
Yes, good evening. Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Heblin,
Here.
Commissioner Callahan,
Here.
Commissioner Webster,
Here.
Commissioner Pratt,
Present.
Commissioner Byers, Chief Cowan,
Here.
Legal Counsel Brian Snur,
Present.
here.
And picture only.
Yes, and then I'm Board Secretary Amy Oakley.
Thank you, Amy. At this time, we'll call for public comment. Hi, Doug.
Our only public is Doug.
Doug, did you have anything you want to comment on? Okay. Let's move on to approval of the past minutes from July 15th. We have a motion.
I will make the motion to approve the minutes of July 15th.
Second.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Heberlin, second by Commissioner Pratt. Any comments or changes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Brian, do you have two accounts? I'm not sure who the other Brian is.
Might be Brian Ford.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. I'm going to mute, or can you mute yourself, Brian Ford? And unless you want to speak, you've got some other background noise.
You guys should be able to mute him.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Chief Cowan.
So I'm going to talk about two things primarily: the draft plan and then our capital replacement or capital projects and reserve study. I'd like to start with the draft RFA plan. I sent it to you. I did some, since sending it to you, I found a couple little cleanup things, and Attorney Brian Snur had another sentence to add to one of the things. So what I sent you was really close, but what I printed out for you tonight has that extra sentence. I did highlight some of the areas that I felt either needed, another look at or review or affirmation of, and then also there's been some conversation about what the governance, if we were going to change the governance as well. So first of all, I guess, was there any questions, or I can go to the highlighted areas, and I can bring it up on the screen if anybody. If Tyler or anybody needs to see it, I can share the screen and bring it up. But I can work through the questions if you'd like.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
hit the high points and the highlighted.
On page, I did it in black and white to save a little bit because there's quite a few of these. So, but it was highlighted in yellow. The effective date. If we are planning on the February ballot measures, which is what we've been discussing, I don't know if March 1st would be too soon, but I felt April 1st would be a good effective date. But I just want confirmation from. And Brian Snur, if you have any, is that reasonable considering that we're already together for the most part?
Yeah, I think if you have a February election, April 1st would probably be the earliest date you would want, just because of the administrative hassles and setting up a new entity. You got to get your EIN number and do all the, just the payroll stuff alone is a pretty big burden for a department of your size. So April 1st, you wouldn't want to do it any sooner than that, I don't think.
Well, we won't have any payroll issues except for moving the board of commissioners.
Well, but the RFA is a brand new entity, so you have to get a new EIN.
Oh,
So you have to get new registrations with the state agencies, all those types of things. Because it is.
Maybe May or June instead of April?
I prefer to keep it as early as possible in case there is movement from Bob. If they want to pursue joining the new RFA. It'd just be preferable. But we could go May 1st or something like that.
Well, I'm just thinking, you don't want to come up short on time either.
No,
So,
that's
there's
true.
things we may not know.
No,
It's a new venture.
yes, I would agree.
Maybe some advice from Mr. Schnur, who's been through this multiple times.
Yeah.
and
That's good.
Appropriate time span.
I'd say May 1st is more reasonable.
I think May 1st gives you a little bit more breathing room.
Yeah.
Different folks that are going to have to get things done. And I don't think it'll certainly won't affect your operations, because operationally it's not going to make a difference when the effective date is, but administratively it will.
Okay,
Maybe one.
Okay.
I will change that.
Is everybody good with May 1st then?
Yes.
Tyler, May 1st? Okay.
The next page was I just highlighted that, the name of the RFA at this point.
Chief, what page are you on?
Okay, that would be page 5 at the top. And then next was on page 7, under 4. I need to change that to May 1st as well.
I think that's the thing, yeah.
So the question, we adopted shoreline fire department as our
That's what we decided 2 or 3 meetings ago.
To keep it the same, right?
Just to keep it the same for now. Next highlight was page 10. There's been some emails sharing of potentially, I'm just throwing this out, are we revisiting the composition of the governing board? Considering we have a couple of vacancies potentially.
Well, when I heard I know that we have one on our group. And when I heard that there was possibly, well, there is going to be one on North Shore's group. If we're going to pare down a little bit, now would be the time. I like the way you phrased it, Matt, in your email, that upon vacancies, we would pare down. That
Right.
kind of leaves it to when people leave, not when you get reelected, competing over positions, but when there's a vacancy, we'll pare down. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there to see if there was any interest in, going from a board of 5 on each side to a board of 4 on each side.
I did send this to Brian as well to comment on, and he can weigh in on this for sure, but the short version that I got was that if there was a vacancy, we would just choose not to fill it, after the vacancy. It does cause some issues though, with the potential of, if the county forces us to fill it, somebody could actually run, for that vacancy, and then we have a board of 5 on each, potentially each, district, but only 4 voting members on the RFA. I guess you could have a proxy person or something like that. But Brian, you want to elaborate on what it would look like?
Yeah, I think within each district, you could choose not to fill a vacancy, but it does then trigger statutory right of the county to fill it, and then ultimately the governor to fill it. They may have no interest in it unless somebody's pushing to fill it. But when that position is up in the regular election cycle, it would be on the ballot and people would be able to apply for it. So you could have that, 5-member board with one person just doesn't have anything to do. The other thing to think about is each district could, after the RFA is formed, go to the voters and ask to reduce the size of your board from 5 to 3. Because at that point you would not have any employees, so you wouldn't be required to be a 5. And that would allow you to have a 6-member board. So that's something you could consider now as part of the plan, or you could consider amending the plan after it's formed, if that makes sense at that point. That would require additional elections after the formation of the RFA.
Which would require an additional person off of each board at some point. It'd be a little bit down the road, because we would form the RFA and then it would take another vote, and then probably through attrition at that point, of not filling the next position. So we're talking probably, I would think, 2 or 3 years. I haven't looked at the election cycles, and it would really depend on who was not interested in potentially running anymore or being a commissioner anymore. I don't know if anybody on either board, aside from the 2 that we've already discussed, would be interested in not being a commissioner anymore. I don't want to push that, and I don't want to suppose or assume for any of you, because it's your decision, or each of your individual decisions in case we wanted to pare down. But it'd probably be at least 2 or 3 years, I think, before this would come to fruition.
Mr. Schnur, what's the time frame between a vacancy being created and our statutory responsibility to fill it? Is it 3 months? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, you have 90 days to fill it. After 90 days, you lose the right, and it goes to the county. I can't remember how long they have, but ultimately it goes to the governor.
And can we not just write into the governance model of the new RFA that we plan to reduce from a 10 to an 8-member board for the new RFA?
So I mean, you could include that in the plan, that you're going to start at 10 and go to 8. There's no mechanism to have a 4-member fire district board, only 4 positions. So you would still have that problem of the potential of somebody filling a 5th position that, has no actual role in the governance. But that person, I had this come up with a different RFA recently. You could have a 5-member board, 4 appointed positions, but the 5th member could be there to sit in at times when people are absent or traveling, or those types of things. So there would be ways you could kind of give that position some meaning if you wanted to. I suppose the other thing to consider is if Bothell is a realistic discussion down the road, that's probably going to change your governance as well. So if you start with either a 10 or 8-member board, even if you start with the 8-member board and you have those vacant positions, it's probably it's going to sort itself out in the long term, I guess is what I'm saying. So it probably wouldn't be a huge issue if you're anticipating actual vacancies and anticipating that you just wouldn't bother filling them. Maybe now would be the time to focus on the 8-member. That's, again, as the chief said, that's up to all of you and your comfort level. So it would work.
So, Mr. Schnur, why are we obligated to have a 3 or a 5-member board when we're creating something new, right? The new RFA, doesn't that kind of supersede and replace the existing fire districts?
No, it overlays the existing fire districts. So the fire districts in your governance model continue to exist. Once again, you could include in the plan provision that the RFA will have, 1, 2, 5, 17 RFA commissioner positions that would be elected either in districts or generally. And then you can get rid of the fire districts, but currently you're setting it up so that the fire district board members will also be the governing board member, and there's no flexibility in the fire district board member size. It's statutory. RFA is more creative.
To guarantee the geographical representation.
Well, I recognize that's why we included all 10, but I couldn't remember. I thought that we did that to just for that purpose, right? That we weren't obligated to do that, but we chose to do that.
Yeah, the geographical representation is from the existing fire districts. So even after the RFA, we can continue to use the districts as our electeds into the RFA governing board. And then we're still, statutorily obligated to either be 3, 5, or 7, depending on what's defined. So, I think that with our planned attrition, I think Brian's got a really good point though too, of that, some of this is going to sort itself out in the future. We could say that by the end of 2025, then we're down to a 4-person board, but we might be revisiting this anyway if Bothell is interested and they want to come on or not. You can revisit it again next year. As I recall, it's the majority of the board needs to approve a change in the governance. But we would also, if we're going to rely on the districts to go, if we're going to drop to 3 each, then we need a vote of the people to drop to 3 each as well.
At this point, is it, we have the opportunity to drop it, holding 5 and 5 where we're at with everything up in the air. I don't see where it helps us. We can just stay with our governors. It's a thing that's taken care of by itself.
Yeah.
And then attrition can happen and once the RFA is formed, then we look at it.
A friendly suggestion would be to keep it at 5 and 5, and then as I think it's earlier next year that we're likely to lose a North Shore commissioner, and then at that point you can say there will be 4 voting, even though there's Shoreland can still have 5 members. You can say 4 are voting members of the RFA board, and then as that vacancy comes up at the end of the year, then you could either choose not to fill it, or a vote of the governing board would say, we're now at 8, or by then we'll know if Bothell's interested or not, and then we can make further decisions about what we want to do, if and or when they want to join.
I just think that we made the decision on governance. We have other stuff to work on, I think.
Yes.
Staying with 5 and 5 gets us moving.
You can change it next year with a
Right.
majority vote.
Right.
So
Can we put somewhere in the governance board then that we will review it at the end of?
I wouldn't pigeonhole yourselves. I would, the governing board by majority vote can change it, so I would just leave it open.
Yeah.
Just leave it open.
All right.
I think the practicality is that we will be down to 4 and 4, but I agree with Rick on this, and that just keep it 5 and 5 for now, and then as things organically figure out, we'll figure that out as we go along.
Okay.
That'd be my suggestion, at least.
Did I miss something in this? Because don't we have to keep 3 or 5? Can't go to 4 and 4?
We could
As long as
go
we're separate districts?
on the governance, on the RFA governance board, you could say there's 4 voting members, but we have,
Okay.
by early next year, we're likely to have 4 on the North Shore board, but we will still have 5 on the Shoreland board.
I understand that part.
Yeah, my suggestion would be to just say you still have 4 voting members from each side, and then as we lose one, then you could choose not to fill it, but by then we'll know, and you can adjust the governance board however you like.
I'm perfectly fine leaving it 5 and 5.
So,
Okay. I was hearing something that wasn't being said.
It is a little complicated because the RFA board it can be whatever we want it to be, but we're held, if we're going to keep that geographical representation, the districts are also held by statute, by law, to stay at 5 until we either vote to reduce it or.
I'm fine leaving it 5 and 5.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with that.
All right, thank you. I wanted to make sure because there were some emails that popped up since last month. The next one is on page 12, under liabilities. Just wanted to highlight this, that district debt. I wrote in there because I believe this is the consensus of the board, that voter-approved debt, such as an unlimited tax obligation bond, a UTGO, shall remain with the originating jurisdiction's voters as an obligation. Both North Shore and Shoreline both have UTGOs that are out. They both are sunsetting here in the next couple of years though too, so, which is nice.
27.
Yeah, so, but until, now if the RFA takes on debt in the future, then it'll be homogenized across the whole thing, but existing UTGOs with the existing.
Our bond expires in 27.
Early 27, I think.
You guys might be a little bit before us, I can't remember. It's like, it's in the next couple of years. Yeah. Ours is the end of 27 or early 28, I think. I'd have to look it up, so. I just wanted to highlight that just to make sure in case there was any questions about that. Commissioner Fisher did ask a question before the meeting started about impact fees. And impact fees are very tightly controlled. It has to stay with the city that's authorized it. So I didn't put it in there. I could put it in there if you'd like, but it's a law. So, okay. And I apologize too that we didn't set up. You either set up that there's public here or you set up for the screen. And I'm sorry that I chose the wrong way. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. Or the next page on page 13, the organizational chart. Yeah, I introduced it in draft form, but I want to make. Was there any questions or any issues or concerns about it? Oh, I missed one. I know I missed one. Any questions about that? I know where it is.
What did you miss?
Okay. I'm going to go back to page 11. It's not highlighted, but under benefit charge. So as we get to, well, two things actually. Number one, on the 70 cents, we need to establish what that levy rate is going to be, the property tax levy rate. We just established it at 70 cents in North Shore or in Lake Forest Park and Kenmore. I think that's probably a decent place to be, especially since it's consistent with what we just approved. I would kind of want to wait, maybe until I have a 2025 budget, but we're going to have to make a decision on this probably sooner than I'll have a finalized 2025 budget. So it doesn't have to be tonight, but maybe, or we can have the discussion tonight if you'd like of where we should be. I'm estimating approximately that we're going to be around $1.11 equivalent in equivalent levy rate, which would mean if we're at 70 cents on the property tax, it would be about 40 cents on the fire benefit charge. And I state this because, as you all know, especially the North Shore commissioners, we finally got to that place where the fire benefit charge was at 60%. And the higher that we push the levy rate up to start with, the longer it'll take for things to tip to that 60% on the fire benefit charge. 70 cents though, and 40 cents would give us quite a while before we would need to do a lid lift or anything like that. And I think that from an optics standpoint, 70 cents with what we just passed as well would probably be a decent starting point.
What is Shoreline at now for levy rate?
Of course you'd ask that. Oh, $1.27. It's like, keep talking.
Okay,
Please.
all right. Sorry, Matt.
No, keep talking. That's fine. I can find it fairly quickly, I think, hopefully.
Thinking I knew that.
Yeah.
I should know that off the top of my head. I apologize.
We attend the budget meetings too, and yeah.
Well,
So budget, you guys are getting ready to prepare your budget, commissioners, I do. Think about the NAFO and election land and stuff like that, if you guys want to attend.
We're at 73.7
Make sure
cents.
that's factored in your budget.
You're at 73?
73.7367
Instead of trying to.
approximately. Some of this gets tweaked by the county. Let's just call it 73, 74 cents. And our fire benefit charge is about 53 cents. So our equivalent right now is $1.27. North Shore is at $1.13.
And what was our levy rate at prior to the adjustment?
Um,
This year for 24.
For 2024, The levy rate was 50 cents. The fire benefit charge was 63 cents for 2024. Which was why we were pushing the 60%.
And one more time, Matt, what was ours? I'm
It's
sorry.
about 73, 74 cents.
73.7.
So it's 73.7, but again, that's not going to be completely exact because the county tweaks things after we've established, but it's pretty close to that.
Okay.
I should have done that off the top of my head, I'm sorry. I got quite a few numbers rolling through the cobwebs. So anyway, so we are going to need to establish what we want to start with the levy rate. And to put it in context, for example, North Shore, 20 years ago, this is the best context I can give you. North Shore 20 years ago was at $1 on their fire levy, and it's taken 20 years for it to get upside down to the point of the 60 cents. So are we going to get 20 years if we start at 70 cents? No. But we'll get, probably 12, 15. It really just depends on assessed values and cost increases and so forth, as to how long it takes to go upside down. But I think 70 cents would be palatable, not only because, well, now, especially since I knew we were in the 70s, I just didn't know where. 73, 74 cents would be a little bit of a reduction. It'd be maintaining the same in the Lake Forest Park Kenmore area if we were to establish that.
Is this something that we need to vote on, or?
We do need to establish it, prior to, because we'll have to formulate all the ballot language and all that, and that will have to come. Excuse me, as part of that financial package. We can put a pin in this one for a second. I can talk about the fire benefit charge as well.
Does it make sense to make this decision closer to when our final budgets?
It probably would, because I'll know what assessed.
Real good sense.
I'll know more about like assessed values and so forth. I'll know what I won't know what the 2025 budget is, but I'll have a better feel for the 2025 budget if you give me another month or two. The problem is that we need to have open discussions and public input, and we need to be able to articulate at least approximately. And I can still do that in approximate terms, but at some point we're going to need to establish this rate likely and prior to me establishing the budget and knowing, and even knowing what 2025 the budget is doesn't exactly tell us what the RFA budget will be, but it would be close. I could get you some pretty good estimates. So we can put a pin in this one and wait until like the next meeting or October even potentially. My plan is to have everything done, by October, so it can go back to each of the boards, and if there's any final tweaking or anything, so that in November we've approved everything, because by December 13th, and to get all the language written up and everything for the ballot, because by December 13th we have to have it to the county. So in the next couple of months we have to kind of get everything completely figured out. I think we're really close, don't get me wrong, but except on the capital, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So,
I would suggest that we just say, hey, we're recommending that it be about 70 cents, and then once the budget is getting closer, we can dial that in and have an exact number.
I can even do some very gross estimating of like if we have assessed values that increase by this and costs that increase by this, I can tell you how many years it would take to get upside down again, if you'd like. For me, that's what I look at, is like, how long is this gonna, what's palatable, for me, the higher the fire benefit charge, the better, in my opinion, because it's a more equitable way of getting revenues, just my opinion. However, we hit that 60%, so you can't rely on it for 80% or 100% of your revenues. You have to figure out a balance. And so for me, I'd like to push the fire benefit charge up as high as we can, to the point of if we're pushing it up and we're like, yeah, in 3 years, we're gonna need to do a little bit. Well, no, let's not do that, because that means we have to go again back to the voters, pay for the, for the vote and blah, blah, blah. But if we can get at least 10 or 15 years, in my opinion, that would be a smart way to go.
There's somebody out there, sorry.
The door's propped open,
Oh, is it? Okay.
or it was.
Oh, it's a little people's.
So,
I can just see movement.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
There's a lady there.
okay. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, that's what I said, a little people's.
Really short.
So,
After she started moving around.
what do you mean like kids?
Yeah.
Okay,
Like a
Okay.
little people's.
Little old lady or the kid.
I kind of like Josh's idea, let's go with 70 cents for
Our goal
now.
is, our goal is 70 cents.
Let's go for 70 cents for now, and then if that isn't palatable, we can tweak it, when we get closer.
Absolutely.
Okay. The other piece is are we okay?
Yeah, they're just waiting for Katie.
Okay. So the other piece is the fire benefit charge on B2. So we have to establish a new fire benefit charge as well. We each have a fire benefit charge, and hats off to North Shore. We have had a fire benefit charge for a long, long time. Interestingly enough, we have the same consultant. We're both using Neil Blondheim. But the fire benefit charge, the factor worksheet that North Shore uses it's, how can I say this? I don't mean to be critical. It's a little antiquated. There's more modern ways of formulating and dissecting out. Like, for example, Shoreline has, because we're more recent, Neil recommended, and we have 6 or 7 different sizes of residential structures and more commercial, 0 to 5,000 feet, 5,000 to 10,000 square feet, blah, blah, blah. It's more detailed in that sense. And in my opinion, it's more accurate to assessing the risks of a structure, because you have, if you're lumping, I'm not saying that this is the case, but if you're lumping a 1,500 square foot residential house at the same as a 10,000 square foot residential house, I don't think that that's appropriate. They have different needs. And so I asked Neil, and I'm paying him to do a new combined assessment or fire benefit charge formula and factor worksheet, and he'll have that in the next couple of weeks, he hopes, which is what we need to do anyway. And that way we can sort the impacts of the current model in both Shoreline and Lake Forest Park Kenmore, and the proposed one, to really compare apples to apples as best we can to see what those impacts are. I'm not sure how this will flesh out, and there's, for example, well, just in general, there's more commercial in Shoreline than there is in Lake Forest Park Kenmore too. So is that gonna help us? It should help us, because commercial drives a big part of the risks, and therefore a big part of the fire benefit charge. And so I think I'm hoping that will come back as a positive message to all of our taxpayers. So, but we're working on that, and it'll take a couple more weeks to get that. But that will be included in our proposal as well.
What do you see as a reasonable starting point for percentage of our budget that the fire benefit charge makes up?
Well, if we did the 70 cents and we stay at, and what did I say, it was $1, so 41, so that's, oh, that's not right. So if we did 41 divided by 11, it's at 36.9, 37%. If we're truly at $1.11, if we're able to buy down, we talked about this in the last meeting, if we were to buy down the levy rate with combining our reserves and all of that, then it would be, if we were to buy it down to, say, $1.05, then it would increase, to 38%. So it just really depends. Again, we could start even at $1, and the fire department would charge at 11 cents. But again, it's me personally, I like to have the fire benefit charge as high as we feel comfortable with, because it's more appropriate. And the fire benefit charge, especially in shoreline, will pick up more of the commercial weight of the overall debt or overall cost of running the department, which will ease some of the burden on our residents. We may even want to go less than 70 cents to increase that fire benefit charge weight, knowing that might decrease the amount of time before we get to the 60%. So anyway, so there's no decision there. I'm just informing that I'll have that probably within the next couple of weeks, and then Neil and I can start playing the what if and different models and all that to try and figure out what the impacts are, so I can articulate that.
Yeah, Chief, I think it makes sense to keep that levy rate as low as possible, right? While at the same time giving ourselves 10 to 15 years before we need to make the change, right? Or lift the lid.
Let me play with some of the numbers so I can tell you, like, approximately if we have this kind of AV growth and this kind of cost increases, this is how many years. So that
It'd be really
right
nice
now
to
it's
go
kind of hard to.
It's really nice to go to the taxpayers and say, hey, your levy, your property tax levy is going to be going down, and we expect that, we aren't going to have to come back to you for another decade before we have to live.
We can play with it a little bit. I probably wouldn't want to go more than 60 cents, just because, that probably will be beyond our comfort level. Yeah. But let me play with some of the numbers, and I'll shoot you an email on this, probably this next week, or maybe later this week, and I can start playing with some of the numbers and give you a better idea. Okay, so we skip back to 12. So we already talked about that with the debt. I think that might be it. That is it.
What was the sentence that?
When was what?
What was the sentence that Ryan had?
Oh, he added a sentence. Brian can probably remember more faster than I can. He added a sentence under, I think it was under, it was annexation. On page 8, under 1B 1.1, he added annexation of a portion of a district by a city outside the jurisdiction. I think that was it, right, Brian? Are you looking at it?
Yeah, that was it. And basically it was just correcting kind of the vagueness in the original draft I provided you. So.
Did anything else pop out at you since you and I had talked or shared emails?
No, I mean, I think the discussion's right on the finances. The plan itself, I think, is in pretty good shape, pending your final decisions moving forward on some of these issues. So.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions about this? Okay. I didn't do that. Okay. So on the capital side, so this has been quite a bit more work than expected. I've been promising this for the last couple of months. I did get a draft. So let me back up. I reached out to our insurer, WHA, because they have this talent actually of doing assessments of facilities and costs and reserve studies and all that. He completed it towards the end of last week, which wasn't long enough for me to combine everything. I'm going to use what he has. His name's Winslow, and he did a great job. What he has done, the old RCL study from North Shore, and when they combine those into one document, the issue is that we don't have accurate 2024 starting dollars. Like, we've talked about the generator in North Shore quite a bit, well, in our board meetings, but what is a generator going to cost for $20-24? And he's working on that right now, and he expects that within the next week he's going to have that to me. Once I have all that, I'm going to combine it all together. This is a facilities plan. I've already done the apparatus, so I need to kind of polish that up as well, and then give it to him. I apologize, I still don't have it. It's a huge amount of work, and he's been working diligently on it, but I didn't get it until last week, and I didn't have enough time to get it into the final form that I would present to you. So my goal, and I actually even thinking about, I actually talked with him this afternoon even. My goal at first was to put one document that would have facilities, apparatus, equipment, everything in one. And I'm thinking that might be a ginormous document, because right now the one he did is 78 pages long. The one that RCL was like almost that too, I think. And so now I think there's some superfluous stuff in there that we don't really need to include in our final document. But even so, we're still talking about a very large document. So what I'm thinking is that we'll probably have a facilities, replacement strategy, a apparatus, and a portable equipment one that will all populate to the same, under the same spreadsheet with different tabs, so they can auto-populate to a final capital replacement strategy. That's the plan. So again, I apologize for it not being done. It's taken on a whole life of its own. But the good news is that when it's done, it'll be a very good template for us to more accurately predict, not just next year, but I will say that predicting the cost 3 years from now, okay. 5 years from now we're starting to get to errors. I mean, my goal is to have, just like I've done before with the apparatus plan, is a 20-year rolling plan. But that doesn't mean, the only thing I can guarantee you is that anything over 10 years out is going to be not on target. Anything over 10 years, if you're within 10 or 15%, that's typically really, really good. So 20 years is a long ways to predict out, but that also, it also meets the needs of what I have to prepare for the impact fee program here for 20 years. But it also will give us a long forecast out for some of the things that have longer life cycles. If you have like a 15-year life cycle and you're only budgeting for 10 years, that may not hit in that, and especially if it's a big ticket item, that may not hit in those 10 years, and so it skews the number. So even if it's inaccurate at 15 years or 18 years out, at least it's something that gets you at least in the ballpark, as opposed to a 0 for 10 years, 11, 12, 13, 14, and now it finally hits at 15, then it skews things quite a bit. So I like looking at things in 20-year cycles. I think the RCL was even actually at 30 years, but again, I don't believe 30 year really, really out of whack at that point. So.
Chief, do you have a general sense of the general health of our capital reserves at this point?
That's a great question. I'm actually I'm getting pretty happy. I would say North Shore was a little behind, but we took a big hit this year in 2024 and catching up. Some of the things that we're deferring, that we're going to have to defer to next year, which we've been talking about in our board meetings, I think will help us to keep the costs down for next year, and we can still put a little bit more money into the capital there. We have a pretty robust capital fund here at Shoreline, so I'm actually pretty pleased with. I think overall, we're, again, don't quote me on this, but I believe we're in a good place overall. We have, guesstimating over $4, maybe $5 million between the two departments in capital reserves in different buckets. North Shore has a different bucket scheme. So I actually feel pretty good about it overall. I think what we'll find is that as we join the RFA, and this goes back to a conversation we've had before too, as we look at our reserve funds, that there's probably opportunities for lowering some of them because we won't have to have as much of a cushion because we'll have bigger amounts of reserves total to be able to address things. But that's a decision that you all will have to make once I can prepare the capital thing and the project, I'm sorry, model, and be able to show you, what we need to do. Fingers crossed that we can. Sorry.
Sure.
I don't like not delivering.
Any other questions on the capital discussion plan? Chief, you were saying something about September meeting, having this ready, capital.
Yeah, so I will have this ready before, as soon as I get this ready, I'm gonna share it with you via email so that you guys can start digesting it. And same with the fire benefit charge, that formula and the impacts of that, so that you have time to think about it, digest it, ask questions, ask for more information if you need it, so that hopefully at the September meeting, we can either have conversations that everybody feels comfortable about finalizing it and putting it into our plan, or that we kick it to October. But October would be, we have, in my opinion, an October meeting has to be, we may still have some little tweaking beyond that, but we need to be pretty solid in October, and or, if we're not, to look at a special meeting, and not go a whole month in between. Because by November, it needs to be in front of both boards in final form for consideration. The good news is both boards have extra meetings because of budget season coming up, which we could potentially add an agenda item if we need to. If it's not ready, if at the regular meeting it's not ready.
Why don't we try to meet in September and see if it's done then?
Yeah.
Again, I'm thinking the time it takes to do things, and if we find some changes we want to make in September, then give you October to get it ready.
My two biggest things or the three things I'm working on extensively right now is negotiations, the RFA plan, and budget. So these are my big priorities. And this one has a time, well, they all have time constraints, but this is pretty important to get done here sooner than later. So I'm hoping, as long as Winslow can get the information back to me within the week, that within the next couple of weeks that I can have at least a draft for you to look at.
So you were also talking about possibly having like an open house in September.
Yeah,
we were talking about the RFA meeting itself.
My suggestion would either be to either have more of an open dialogue with the public, although nobody showed up today, but invite people and have more of an open conversation with anybody that wants to ask questions or to provide input. That could be at our regular meeting, or it could be at a special meeting, or it could be before or after, or however. It's just my suggestion that, we've had some comments that we're not asking for public input. I've gone to both the Lake Forest Park and Kenmore council meetings and asked for anybody, please let me know, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we need to do our due diligence of making sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask questions and speak, as long as it's done professionally and constructively, and be able to have a more free form to it a little bit within constraints, and not limit people to just 3 minutes of public comment.
Would the thought be to do one in each area, or just one big meeting?
If we need to do more than one, then we could do one in each, but the September meeting's going to be down at 51. I'm fine with just having one. I've had nobody comment from the shoreline area. We've only had, a couple of people, comment and ask questions from Lake Forest Park Kenmore.
So with this meeting, at this meeting, we have currently a 3-minute.
Right.
If it's a public meeting, are we going to have a dialogue, set up a way we can have a dialogue instead of just being 3 minutes of comment?
It's a risk.
It's a risk.
I think it makes sense to maintain a 3-minute time limit, but If there's very low attendance, then their turn can come back around and they can have another opportunity at 3 minutes, right? But like,
I'm with you, but to have a dialogue, to ask a question, and what I see is there might be 2 or 3 questions they want to ask, so. Is that a 3-minute one for each question? How do we handle that? Because open public meeting is to get, so we don't have issues, so.
Right.
but you don't want to have one
Question
person
and
dominating
answer.
the whole.
Isn't really get up and scream and yell
No,
and
that's
voice
all
your
right.
opinion. It's ask questions and we'll answer them.
Right.
Kind of dialogue.
And
I
that's-
would
and that's-
suggest almost an open house for that and
Right.
separate from our RFA meeting.
It could be, yeah.
That would be my
I'm open to however the board wants to address it. It's exactly kind of what you just suggested. What we don't do is allow public comment and then for us to answer that. We're not supposed to,
Right.
we're not supposed to enter into that kind of dialogue. My suggestion would be that we do that. Is anybody have a question? Okay, you don't even have to take 3 minutes to ask the question, just like, I don't know, tell me what the governance is gonna be, and then we would answer, and you could direct me, or as the chair, or you could delegate however you want to somebody to answer the question. And is there any more questions? You know, and then, and until, 7 hours goes by, until, the questions, there's been questions and answers. I'm not saying that we're gonna have everybody that's happy with the answers, but, and I would strongly suggest that we, not allow for a 45-minute, discussion on a simple topic at least. And that we have some kind of parameters there, but it's been asked, it's been answered. Let's move on to another question, that kind of thing. As long as we feel like we've answered the question as fully as we can, even if people aren't happy or if they want to ask the same question, that's been asked and answered,
Let's move on.
move on to another. If you see my suggestion to try and make sure that we, that we're trying to engage as best we can with the public, because it's certainly, very important for them to be able to ask the questions. The other thing to that too is if we had questions that were being asked, I could also add them to our website, as in the FAQs. I haven't had any, there's a couple, and I shared with you some stuff, but I would like to add a couple. There's probably like 1 or 2 more questions I'd like to add to the FAQ. If you have other questions that you've heard or that you've been approached on, or have yourself, please let me know, and I'll ask him to try and answer that as well, or have Brian answer it, or whatever.
I think it'd be good to solicit questions in advance of the meeting.
That would be great too.
Right,
Yeah.
so if we can like say, hey, we're planning on having an open house, we want to engage the public in dialogue, please, send your questions so that we can prepare, thoughtful, robust answers to those questions. And then that's going to lead to further questions, likely. But it gives us an opportunity to kind of prepare for that, to know what the public's concerned about. So,
You can start the meeting that way too.
Yes.
Like, here are 4 questions that we have received
Yes.
in this last month, and somebody will answer them. Are there any additional questions?
yes. Yeah.
Keep it a question. Yeah.
They're going to get a more thoughtful and robust answer if we're prepared.
Yeah, especially if there's one that we don't know the answer to, where I have to do some research, or Brian does, or I have to, do something. So it'd just be my suggestion that we do something like that.
Also give you an indication of how interested people are.
Yeah, I've already had half a dozen people that have heard about it and in support of it and want to, how can I help? I'm like, here's the pro committee. And I'm trying to stay out of that as much as I can.
So maybe we should.
I know that the union is also interested in supporting, the efforts. And we have entered into a contract that starts in a couple of weeks with our strategic communications agency. And they might be able to help us with some of that. They might have some suggestions too about how to manage a meeting like this as well. So
I suggest we start thinking about planning something like this in October.
Okay.
or
September and October, or just October?
Probably, September might be too fast to publish the meeting, solicit questions, prepare a response, and then have a meeting.
Okay.
I'm
open to-
If we want to try to squeeze that all in by September, I'm happy to do that as long as maybe.
Well, we've got the whole month of September, we've got what, 5 weeks in September, 5 Mondays?
Okay.
23rd or 30th.
So like have a meeting specifically for this?
I would.
Okay.
That
Well, then
way
maybe
we're
that's the
not
way to do it then, is
Discussing business.
have our
and stuff
regular
while
meeting-
People are going, when is my turn? You
Have,
know?
have our regular meeting in September, and then have a special meeting in like early October, or end of September, early October. No, I don't want to go super long into October, because if there's something that comes up that we need to address, I'm not going to have a huge amount of time, or Brian or whoever, to modify, if we have to modify the plan or whatever. Let's just say something comes up that we haven't even thought about, which I find hard to believe, especially when we have Brian here. But if there's something that we haven't thought about, and all of a sudden we need to come up with something else, I just want to make sure that we have enough time to get everything polished in time before November, so that in the November meetings at each of the boards that we can approve.
we have a meeting in September on the 9th,
If we,
do something on the 23rd, Monday.
the 23rd, the 30th takes us out to 6 weeks from now.
I
That
think,
should be plenty of time to, or, even the 23rd,
I'm saying the 23rd, and then we get a chance to.
What month are you looking at?
September.
September.
I'll be in
Respectfully, I would prefer the 23rd, because I have the leadership conference on the week that I'm running, and I'm not going to be here on the 16th. So I prefer
Well,
the
we won't
23rd.
be here on the 16th.
23rd
We'll
then.
be in Naples, so,
Oh, okay, so the 23rd would be,
yeah.
okay.
23rd.
Oh, we're not, then I missed, we're scheduled for the 9th, we're gonna,
No, we still have the 9th as our
no,
regular.
the 9th, and the 23rd?
Yeah.
23rd is public.
Okay, 5 o'clock, and it'll be here?
Let's see, next one's at 51, so yeah, we'd be back up here, unless, it's up to you. It's a special, so
Next one's.
Are we gonna try for 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock?
I'm at your leisure.
I'm thinking you want public here. Big public are coming.
Oh, that's a good
forward.
point.
Maybe 6 o'clock.
Josh says 6.
If you did 6 o'clock, that would allow people that are getting off at 5 to still get here.
Start at 6?
6.
I'll get some cookies.
Put it on
That's gonna be here.
I'll call people.
I thought you wanted a public meeting
the
over there.
website too.
Well, our next meeting's at 51, but if you want to come back, we've been flip-flopping back and forth.
I know that, but I'm saying that if the one at, on the 23rd is going to be the public meeting, and you want the public meeting over there.
There's more people that are fired up down there. Not that there's very many, there's a couple.
Yeah.
But they've been digital or virtually attending as well, so I would think that they'll show up in person, but I don't know.
Let's do it at 51.
Okay.
Yeah, we got now,
6 p.m.
on the 23rd.
on the 23rd.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Is that okay?
That's what I was getting at. You want it over there, so.
And then we'll have the virtual option too.
Oh, no, right before that. You were saying, oh, okay. Sorry.
So our next two meetings will be at 51.
Oh, okay. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to discuss? No?
Hey, Brian, before we, I think it'd be good for you to be at the meeting physically on the 23rd if you're available.
Yeah, I am available on the 23rd. Just as a heads up, I will be out of the country October 3rd through the 13th, so
Okay.
I'll be around.
Thank you.
Mexico?
Actually going to the Faroe Islands,
Oh,
just because I can. So.
good for you, Brian. Good for you.
That's down, yeah.
Yeah, All right.
All right,
All
thank
right.
you.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah, 5:59.
That's good.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Brian.
Don't work too hard.
Motion, we have a
Our attorney
second.
goes up to an hour.
Second.
Josh, second.
Are we adjourned?
We are adjourned.
Have a good